name is Kelly Jernigan Coltharp. I'm a native of New Albany, Mississippi, and Baileytown Farm used to be called Plenitude before my ancestors moved there. And that's where I live now. That's where we lived when I was born. And then I had an older brother named Bill Jernigan Jr. My parents are Bill and Joanne Jernigan. And Bill was diagnosed with a malignant brain tumor at the age of 7. And that was in '64. So back then, the way to treat cancer was to cut. And my dad worked at Futorian at the time, Bill Jernigan, and Mr. Futorian said, find the best doctor for this child. They had prayer groups. Futorian was a family business. People who worked at Futorian back in the '60s became family, kind of like us at school. We became, we had our school family, and that was their work family, and they all went out of their way to support Daddy and Mama and Bill. I was left to fend for myself pretty much at 4 years old. I was kind of shipped around. We lived at Baileytown, and we went to Inglemoor Methodist Church. And those church members took me in, and that's who I'd stay with because Mom and Daddy were in Memphis with Bill because it's where he had his surgery. And so for about a year I was shipped around from different folks, and then my grandparents, Martha and Aubrey Jernigan, moved back. They had moved away to work in Aurora, Illinois, because people were trying to get off the farms. They were all farmers, generations of farmers, where we live, and we still live there, where my ancestors farmed, and it was just a hard life. They had to, provide everything they needed. There were cows and chickens and pigs, and they grew cotton, and then of course they had a garden, and I garden where my ancestors garden. So they'd go to town once a week to get what they needed, like sugar or flour, stuff like that. But anyway, those people took me in until my grandparents could move back, and they moved back in '65, and we all lived at Baileytown together in the house I live in now, that Tom and I try to keep up. We just feel very lucky to be stewards of this property. It's a lot of hard work, but we enjoy it. So Bill, the surgery got most of the cancer, but it left him a vegetable. And when they sent him home, they said he'll probably live 2 weeks because that's how severe he was. And so he came home to the country, Baileytown, in the house we live in now, and he had to be fed, through his nose, and just everything had to be done for him. He could not do one thing for himself. So my mom and dad, they sacrificed everything to take care of him. And he lived because of that. He lived until he was 35. Yeah, and they gave him 2 weeks. But anyway, he lived, and of course that influenced me because I grew up with this, I guess you'd call him a paraplegic, but he couldn't talk. He could laugh. So that I was more aware of disabilities than most people. Most of my friends that I grew up with didn't have anything like that in their home, and it was a unique situation for us. So I guess I was in the first grade, we moved to town because Mama said, I cannot take care of this boy out here in the woods. So we moved to town to Vine Avenue, and that's where I grew up. It was a great neighborhood. And Mama stayed home and cared for Bill, and Daddy worked at Futorian. So it got where it was rough on Mama. It was hard because it was life or death all day long, all night. We couldn't touch the thermostat. You had to leave the thermostat on a certain degree because you couldn't risk him getting sick because he was, He was horizontal all the time, and pneumonia and all that sets in easily. So he rarely got sick. They took such good care of him, and my grandparents helped, and then they hired Maddie Mae, who became my second mama, and she would come in 3 days a week and help with Bill so that Mama could get out of the house and have a life. And she started working at the Calico Mushroom, and that saved her. Those people down there, Gene Waldrop and Kay Powell, they had big time, and that's what she needed, and that helped a lot. So we were all more aware of people with disabilities. So in high school, I was going to be an elementary ed teacher. My mama wanted me to be a nurse. We needed a nurse. But chemistry and I didn't gee-haw. So I said, back then, there weren't a whole lot of opportunities, believe it or not, for women. I could have ventured out and maybe been an accountant or something, but there were very few women in those schools, and my mom and dad were very conservative, and they were like, you just stick with teaching. So I did. I wanted to be an elementary ed teacher until in 1974, I believe is the correct, the first legislation, federal law was passed that children with disabilities could be educated in the public schools. Any schools that received federal money by law had to educate children with disabilities. Might have been 76. Anyway, it was in the late 70s, and so I graduated high school in 78. So I Patsy Livingston was at the school district then, and she was the special services director. Now, there wasn't a requirement then that the state of Mississippi had to provide classes for children with disabilities. Just wasn't you didn't have to. So they either stayed home or went into a institution of some kind. And so we weren't in school with children with disabilities. There may have been some that had a disability that made it, and were just considered different. But so my heart always leaned toward those kids. And Wayne Stanton was one of the first teachers at the high school that had a class, and then you had Hazel Ivy, and that's all I can think of right now.
They were teachers while you were in school.
In high school,
in
yeah.
High school.
And I would go to their classrooms and help out. So maybe that's why Patsy said something to me that day walking down New Albany High School, that center hallway. I can just see us in front of the trophy case when she stopped me and said, "A new federal law has passed. Children with disabilities will be able to go to school. You need to get that degree." I said, "Okay, I'll do it," because I lean that way anyway. So went to Ole Miss. Well, I went to state first and majored in special ed. And then I went to Ole Miss, and I was the first class at Ole Miss to graduate with a degree in special education. Before that, the teachers we had didn't have special ed degrees. They either had a social work degree or a regular ed, general ed degree in elementary, or some kind of degree in general ed, because there weren't any special ed degrees. Because it wasn't a thing. It wasn't a thing until the late 70s that you had to provide services for these children. So when it started out, the main thing special ed provided was an individualized education program called an IEP. They also called it an individualized education plan. And it also provided FAPE. We have lots of acronyms, and that means a free, appropriate public education. And then LRE was least restrictive environment. Sorry to say, when we started out, we did a lot of things wrong. A lot of children who were in the minority were put in special education. Not because of a disability, but because they just didn't test out right. The test was the problem, wasn't the child. So that was a problem for a long time. And finally, the federal government came down and said, your discrepancies between whites and African Americans is too much. There are way too many African Americans in special ed. And so we had to fix that. And that was one of the things I was proud of when I was SPED director. I helped get that fixed. And a lot of that was just awareness. People being aware of what a true disability looked like. When we were in special education at Ole Miss, there was, in one of our textbooks, one textbook, there was about a paragraph about autism. Nobody knew about autism. And this is in 1980, 1981. Didn't know what it was, how to treat it. They were just so unique. And what it took, what made things change was parents, people like you and me who grew up with someone who had a disability and knew of the possibilities that were there. So I think you had a cousin or a cousin that had Down syndrome. And when you grow up and you're around people like that, you realize there's so much they can do. And they just need the opportunity to show it. And or modifications, accommodations, all that came later. Like in 2000, the laws said these children have to be, or everybody's test, they've got to be tested. Now it's, I don't know, it's really gone way that far with testing. But everyone needs to be tested and held accountable. Everyone needs to show that they've learned something and not just stuck in there as a babysitter. So that helped bring awareness. The teachers had to be held accountable for those students. Another thing we did was made sure the students got into general ed. That was a big deal, that they could be with their peers, because when we first started out, they were in separate classrooms to themselves, and they were embarrassed. It was hard because at the elementary level they didn't know any better. They loved coming to my classroom because they got what they needed in there. But as they got older, they didn't want anybody to know I was their teacher. They were embarrassed by that. So we had to be really cool about it, and I wouldn't speak to them in the hallway in front of their friends and stuff. But of course, I taught at B.F. Ford and taught with great people. Anita Buster, Sandy Kent, Diane Simmons. And most of the time we had self-contained classrooms, and they had learning disabilities. They were not in general ed. But we worked through it. We got through it, and we got better. And I think now we wouldn't even recognize those kids as, they're so accepted now, and that's part of it, just awareness that yes, they're not that different. They are just like everybody else. They just have different learning styles and their different learning needs. And when I was educated, you had to learn a certain way. The teacher taught it and you had to get it. If you didn't, it's your bad. But now teachers have learned that they can teach different styles. They can do more visuals, they can do more auditory, they can do it all, now. And that's how most children learn best anyway. But because of special ed, I think teachers have gotten better at teaching because of the diversity they've had to deal with. And that's hard in Mississippi because we're so dadgum conservative. Nobody likes change. And that was a fight I had to fight, especially to get Frog and Nanny going. So I got to teach children who had, I got to teach them PE. And I love to play games, so that was fun. I taught them how to play kickball, I taught them how to play t-ball, I taught them how to folk dance. I love folk. We used to do that in Scouts, Girl Scouts. We did a lot of folk dance, the do-si-do and all that stuff. And what I did was I would find students who could come help me, general ed students who had a heart for it also, and they'd either have a study hall or, they were just way ahead of the other kids. Anything could have happened for them to get to come to my class. I can't remember what it was now. But they would come and help me with them, because some of them would be in wheelchairs. I had students, we'd have to change their diapers, we had to feed them, we had to catheter them, and lots of involvement. So any general ed kids that would come around and help made it so much better for the students, because their peers, they would know people then. They would know other people outside their class. So I saw the talent that I had in t-ball and kickball. But at the Sportsplex at the time, and this is 1990s, mid-1990s, they were not offering anything but t-ball, baseball, softball. We didn't have soccer then. It's hard to believe, isn't it?
Yeah.
There was no soccer. What else do they have now? I don't know, but baseball was about it. So I went to the park committee. I happened to be on the park. I happened to be on the park commission board, maybe, at this time. And I went to the park commission board and said, I have these students who can play baseball. Will you please let them play on a baseball team out here? And they said, no, we can't do that. It's too dangerous. Those balls are hard. They could get hit and get hurt, and we're not going to take that chance. I said, okay, well, what if you let them just have one game a year, let them show what they can do, and we'll use plastic. We'll use plastic balls, we'll use a tee, and, we'll make it as safe as possible. So they said, okay, we'll let you do that. Well, at that time, there was a group of that, maybe it was the school board, not sure, but Dean Province was on the school board for a long time, and he had children in the gifted program. All his children were, very, very smart. And he thought the gifted program needed more, and that required money. So he started raising money, the endowment. The endowment started to raise money for the gifted program, because they needed, microscopes and all that stuff. So that's how it started. And so the endowment decided that they would do a big fundraiser, and they called it Frog and All. Frog was Dean Province's nickname. Well, he happened to die of cancer at a very young age, and my mother died right there same time, and she had a brain tumor also. She developed a brain tumor just like my brother. It was in a different part of the brain, but so we were dealing with that, and my brother, we were still taking care of him, and I had 3 little brats. I mean, just awful. And they were like 3, 4, 5, just they were cute, but we were busy. And so Dean died, Mama died, and we got to have our ball game. So my teaching partner, Karen Massingill Churchill, now, she said, why don't you name it Frog a Nanny for your mother? Frog for Dean and Nanny for your mother, because that's what my 3 kids called her, was Nanny. So I said, sure, let's do that. So we called our ball game Frog and Nanny. And the first ball game was kind of scary, because no one was quite sure how this was going to go. So Patsy showed up, Diane showed up, Kenneth Quinn was superintendent, he came. And then one of my favorite people in all the world is Reverend Bill Everett. He and Linda came. I mean, there were probably 20 people there, maybe 25, counting teachers. And the teachers were Karen, me, and her brother. Steve Massingill is now one of our legislators. Is he in the House? Anyway, I think he's in the House. And her brothers helped, and her grandfather provided caps. I think they said Massingill Trucking. And we might have had a t-shirt. I should know that, but I don't. So we played, Connie Anderson was there, So we played our first t-ball game, and Bailey was playing softball for Bill Parks and Larry Stanford, and it was Bailey and Mallory and Kelly Yates and that group. That they were great group. I went to them and said, would y'all consider being buddies for my students that are playing t-ball? And they were like, yes. And I was so nervous asking them, because I thought, I was so used to people not wanting to be a part or be around them, because maybe they just didn't know how to act, how to treat them. It was something different. They weren't aware. Awareness is what has made all the difference, because once you're aware of people with disabilities and realize they're not that different from us, it changes everything. So they were the baseball buddies, and they pushed wheelchairs, or they helped people walk, whatever it was they needed. So it was a big success. And Bill Everett, the movie, what's the movie with Tom Hanks and the girls, the women's team during World War II?
A League of Their Own.
A League of Their Own was out, and Bill Everett wrote an article for his church bulletin and said, what was it? Tom Hanks said, you don't cry in baseball. There's no crying in baseball. And Bill Everett said, yes, there is. And it was so sweet. I know. It was the best article, and I still have it somewhere. I have all my Frog and Annie stuff somewhere, but so it was a big success. Kenneth Quinn, Patsy, they were like shocked, kinda, that we pulled it off and nobody got hurt and everybody had a good time. Well, Leanne, as you know, it grew and grew, and part of it's because of your support. Of course, we got where we included younger children, older children. We got where we included county kids. It just became a huge celebration for these children with special needs and their parents. One of the best things I thought was when they would announce their names, because these children didn't get a whole lot of recognition at school at that time. And so when they would get up to bat, they got to hear their name. Everybody got to clap for them, and it was a big deal. So that's why it grew, because it was so good for these children, and the parents wanted their kids to be a part of it. And it just kept growing until we had the parade, we had parades that you organized, and it just got so many kids in the school involved, and they were around children with disabilities and realized they are just like us. They're just like us. So that was the beauty of that, and I'm proud to say when I retired, it slowed down, because it is hard to fit in. You have to work, you have to fight for it. And so it slowed down, and then it kind of stopped. Frog and All stopped also. Frog and Annie kind of became Frog and All. Frog and All got so big, and then when testing became so important, teachers said, we just don't have the time to put into Frog and All, because they would pick a subject. Like one year it'd be English, and it all revolved around English. Do you remember how that worked? And science and blah, blah, blah.
It was huge.
We had more fun doing it too. Big parade, everything. But then when testing got to be important, the federal government came down with those laws that if you accept federal monies, you have to show us your test results. So that became more important. And so, but we could still do Frog and Nanny until about, I guess, 2000, when the federal government came down with No Child Left Behind, and all children had to be assessed, even children with disabilities. So time just became an issue. And so I retired in 2014. And then my oldest granddaughter, Caroline King, was in high school oh God, when was that? 4 years ago? I don't do math. 22. Something like that. 2022. Anyway, she was student body president and she brought Frog and Annie back. And she organized it and got it going. Of course, we all helped her best we could. And now it's still going. And John Shaw teaches the self-contained class at the middle school, and she's big in making it happen. And it's not quite what it used to be, but I think it could get there if they have an advocate for it and could push it through. It's just time is the thing with testing. So, but yeah, I'm real proud of Frog and Annie.
I think about a lot of the kids who were in regular education who were so involved with it, you know, way back then, and what they do now. So many teachers, and even if they're not special education teachers, they definitely are teachers who have a heart for special education students and inclusion. You know, I think that's probably an impact that nobody ever thought about until you look back and think, wow.
I know.
A lot of great teachers.
Remember your class, I can't remember how we made this work, how we got away with it, but I would bring my students into your art class, and you would do art with my students and your students.
Yeah.
Little things like that, just being together for that 40 minutes, whatever our class time was, made the biggest difference in people's lives. And like, you know, they made friends.
Yeah.
We and that's so big for people with disabilities, because they're so cut off sometimes because of their disability. Either they can't drive, you know, and go places independently. Oh, remember the dances we had? You would sponsor some kind of you loved Halloween.
Yeah.
And we had Halloween dances, and my students were right there with it in the middle. And we had, I mean, there might not have been many kids there, but the kids that were there had fun.
Yeah.
And they were involved, and the students with disabilities were included.
Yeah.
And so.
We took a field trip to Camp Ticklewitha and went canoeing.
Went canoeing with students that were, you know, had wheelchair bound.
Yeah.
They got to go canoeing because we made it happen.
Yeah.
And the Girl Scout person was your friend, and she was like, yes, come on. Where most people were like, oh, I don't know, am I going to get sued?
Yeah.
If something goes wrong, you know? Oh my gosh, we had so much fun getting those kids involved in journalism.
Yeah.
We let them come in our they came with me to our journalism class. Oh, that was the best job. And then I had to go into administration. Whew, that's the hardest job in the whole wide world, special ed director. It's horrible. I feel sorry for anybody that has that job, but I love you and I appreciate you, but you can't make anybody happy. You know, and I had left a job where I made everybody happy.
Yeah.
They laughed at my jokes. Oh, it was such a great thing, but yeah. And now my daughter, Bailey Coltharp King, has a business where she provides therapy for children on the spectrum. And that's amazing what they've learned to do for children, you know, autism. She's taught them, she potty trains them, she's taught them they teach them how to talk socially, but, you know, teach them how to be social and outings. And my favorite show is Love on the Spectrum, of course. Follow those kids on Instagram. See, that's going to do wonders for this world. It's going to do wonders. Huge.
I can't think of anything more impactful than that.
I know. Why didn't we think of that?
We tried, I guess.
We did, and we were ahead of, you know, it just wasn't the right
Our
time.
television show. In the doghouse.
In the doghouse. God, we had
the predecessor of Love on the Autism. Love on the Spectrum.
If we had lived anywhere else but Mississippi.
That could have been our show.
That could have been our show, yeah. these big cities. All right, so we've come a long way, really. When you think about where we started as Mississippians, we've come a long way, and we've got to really be careful that we don't go back. And I see that happening, and I'm very upset about it. I'm very upset right now with the way things are going in our politics. And I don't want to go into that, but my family knows I am liberal when it comes to people having rights and being treated equally as much as possible. So
well, you remember the time when these same children that you loved and educated were not even allowed to attend public schools. Oh. They were told, no.
That's right.
You can't come to our school.
That's right.
I mean, you were in school when they couldn't come to school.
Yeah, true.
So you have seen such a huge, I mean,
yeah,
you remember the before.
Yeah, yeah, and now it's just, to me, diversity is the key to a full, happy life. I have been lucky to travel. I've been to Africa, I've been to Paris, I've been to Greece, Athens, and to see the world is smaller than it used to be, and people, their cultures are fascinating, and we bring them here and want to change them, and that's just not right. Or back in the day, the British went in and colonized Africa and tried to make them more like them. Anyway, it's been a problem for a long time, but I think you and I have got to keep embracing diversity and fighting for it and speaking out for it, which upsets my family sometimes because they had rather me, and be more conservative and not hurt anybody's feelings. But sometimes
be quiet
and let the people in charge, the powers that be, who are normally white males. One thing I'm very happy about is my daughter has 4 daughters, and they know there is no limit to what they can do, and I think that is great. And then I have another granddaughter in Memphis who can do, they realize they can be veterinarians, they can be doctors. As women, we're getting better. We just got to stand up for ourselves and stand up for those who can't speak. And I think that's what you did a lot, was you spoke for those that were nonverbal. You made sure you may not have said it verbally, but you wrote it. You were good at writing, because you were always emailing Jay Foster or Chuck Garrett or somebody about how things should be or could be. Yep.
Being a voice for those who don't have a voice.
Yes, so important. And it's not easy. People will act like they don't know you sometimes because they don't want to face it.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear it. They don't want to change. That's the problem. Nobody likes change. They like to keep things the way they are, and I get it. As I get older, change is harder. As you get older, it's even harder, just because things slow down. Just your brain slows down a little bit.
I remember something I heard you say more than once that I thought was very, very powerful. When you would have to come and speak to the faculty about something that was going to make teachers' lives harder.
Yeah.
It was always something that nobody wanted to hear.
Yes.
You're going to have to do these things. And but what the thing that you said that I was always like, did you hear that?
Yeah.
But what if it was your grandchild?
Yeah.
Now you just think, you don't even have grandchildren right now, but what if your grandchild was in this class? Don't you want the teacher to give them another chance? Mm-hmm. Don't you want them to present it a different way? What if your grandchild doesn't understand it the way the teacher taught it? Doesn't your grandchild deserve a second chance to get it another way?
Mm-hmm.
And I was just like, yes, like, don't you get it? This can be you.
Yeah.
This can be you. This can be yours.
Yeah.
This child,
and it happens.
it does, and then they change.
Yeah, and sometimes those parents are the greatest advocates for their children, and it's hard. It's hard on them, and I tried my best to support the parents and get them what they thought their child needed. But of course, when you're dealing with 4 different principals, assistant principals, a superintendent, you got to do what you got to work together. You have to compromise, and sometimes it happened, and sometimes it didn't. And I hate that some parents feel like they didn't get what their child needed. But it was a team effort, a lot of teamwork. My daughter-in-law, Jenny, Collins' wife, is also a special ed teacher in Memphis, and she is doing incredible things. They have a cheerleading squad, and she makes sure they're at the football games and basketball games, whatever. We wanted to do that, and we just didn't get to that. Didn't get to make that happen. But just little simple outings like that means so much to parents, to see their child get to be involved in something. And then also, it's so, like you said, it's so good for their peers, because you never know, they may have a child with a disability, and it won't be such a shock to them when they've grown up with them and they know it's okay. And sometimes you and I had rather be around those people. They're so loving and kind, and genuine. They're genuine, and there's a lot to be said for that. I don't have any regrets, except I wish if I could go back, I would probably even be more outspoken than I was, because you just get tired. I got tired. I got a lot. I had to quit. It wears you out, all that fight. And a lot of these parents have no idea how we fought. They don't know, because we did it in meetings, trying to fight for their kids. But I still see, I employ some of my previous students on the farm. They help me mow and weed eat, and used to go to the farmer's market. We used to have the greatest biscuits and jam farmer's market in downtown New Albany, and they would help me sell there. Just got out and met people. Yeah, it was great, fun.
Well, it's kind of full circle for you,
Yeah,
You think about how you got started.
true that.
You were 4 years old when Bill
Yeah, that's all I knew.
had his surgery.
Yeah.
And he was 7?
Yeah, he was 7, and he looked just like Daddy. Good looking, young kid. Yeah.
And he lived to be
35.
35.
When Mama got sick with her brain tumor, Maddie Mae, who had helped, and the good news, the great thing about Maddie Mae is she was neighbors. She grew up next door to my grandmother at Baileytown. Her parents were sharecroppers. Her big brother Slick and his wife Thelma worked up at the Bramletts where my friend Ellen lived. They helped up there, and then Maddie Mae worked helped Big Mama's family as sharecroppers, and then so Big Mama was like, I know who can help take care of Bill, and she did. She did great. In fact, Tom's working on her portrait for me right now.
Oh, wow.
I know. And she had some Indian in her. Her grandmother was Chickasaw. So, where we live, the Chickasaws lived. The king of the Chickasaws lived down by King Creek on 15 South. And where we live, one of his chiefs owned that property. And his name's on the deed that we got from the United States government, who took the land from them, So she was part Chickasaw. Okay, so Maddie Mae had died. So when Mama got sick, so she was back at home all the time with Bill. And when, so after Maddie Mae died, she started showing these symptoms, and took her to the doctors, and they said, oh, she's probably had a mental breakdown because Maddie Mae died. So that's where it started. And come to find out, no, it was a brain tumor large brain tumor in the frontal lobe. So she was in the hospital and had to, we had to decide what to do. And Daddy was torn because if they operated, she could come out as a vegetable too. That's always a problem there when you operate on your brain. So we decided no, she wouldn't want that. She didn't want to be a vegetable because she was kind of crazy at the time. She didn't know she had a brain tumor. So didn't operate. So we had to move Bill. We didn't have anybody to take care of Bill because I had the little kids. And was working. I couldn't take care of him. And so John David Pennebaker and Patsy helped get him a place at NMRC. And he lived there for about 2 weeks and died. So he was living on love.
Mm-hmm.
He should have died a long time ago. So Mama, that's when Bill died, when he was 35. And then Mama lived about 5 years after that. She didn't live too long, but she did have 1 year where she didn't have anything wrong with her. After they shrunk it enough that she could have 1 year, and then she started having strokes and went down. So, she died after that. So yeah, Daddy's been through a lot,
Mm-hmm.
but you'd never know it.
And he stayed out there at Futorian?
He stayed
For a
out there at
long time?
Futorian 40 years.
Wow.
Yeah, he knows a lot of folks. A lot of good people worked at Futorian. Tom started at Futorian. He delivered the mail. Yeah. So, back then, people were ready to get off the farm. It was just too hard. Just too hard. It's hard work. So that's when Futorian came. Everybody went to work in the factory if they could.
How long did your grandparents live when they came back?
Oh gosh. Big Daddy died in let me think. I think he died right around Mama, and then Big Mama lived to like 1999. So.
And they lived out there at the farm
Mm-hmm.
when they came back?
Mm-hmm.
Because that was their house.
That was her mom and daddy's house.
Okay.
I'm the 5th generation to live there. So, yeah. When we moved to town, they came back and lived in that house. Fixed it up. They remodeled it. I'm sure you remember Tyndall Davis. Huge influence in my life. He and Beverly, his wife, had 2 sons, Tommy and Joe. And Joe Davis was one of my dear friends. We went to Sunday school together. And they were both in wheelchairs. And what Beverly did, she got her a job at the Votech so that her sons could get an education, because she made sure they could get to school. And that's what she did to make sure they were very intelligent. They were just physically disabled. And then Tyndall, they were at church Sunday mornings, Sunday nights, anytime it was open. They made sure those boys were there. So that was a big influence on me, seeing them being out, because of course Bill couldn't get out. The only time he went out was to where I live now, my grandmother's, for Christmas. Daddy had to pick him up and carry him everywhere. I don't remember him having, we didn't have a wheelchair, I don't think. Oh yeah, we did, but back then they were so awkward, heavy. So, but yeah, Daddy would pick Bill up every night and take him to their room. He slept beside them in a bed right next, because they 24/7, all 24/7 care. And then in the mornings he'd pick him up and take him back to his hospital bed that was in the middle of the den. He was in the middle of everything. And that's one reason Daddy has bad shoulders and bad knees, because he had to pick up Bill all the time. So, and they'd cut his hair and, pick him up and do that. Move him. You had to, always move him so they didn't get bed sores. And he was in excellent shape. He was so well cared for. Yeah. He was on some strong meds for seizures though. But, yeah. one night he had a seizure, and Mom and Daddy, I was just a kid, and I don't think Tracy was born yet. And they said, call the doctor. Well, all I knew was Dr. Bramlett, because Ellen was my buddy. So I just picked up the phone and called Ellen's number, and Dr. Bramlett answered, and I couldn't talk. I was so upset. That was my first seizure to ever see at 9 years old. And I couldn't say anything. And maybe he heard my parents in the background, I don't know, but I didn't say a word, and he showed up at our house. He sure did. He knew it was me somehow.
No caller ID.
No caller ID. Yeah. And then he got on those, that heavy stuff to keep that from happening. But that's the only, he didn't get sick. They took such good care of him. But I think today, the biggest thing is awareness. And I know my daughter Bailey and my daughter-in-law Jenny, they work toward that. And maybe they've heard me talk about it enough to know that that's the key. Is get them out. Let people see they're just like us. They just have different needs. And the things they're doing are amazing. The things that education has come so far, thank goodness. And that's because of parents and teachers like you, general ed teachers like you, who push for it, fight for it, stand up for it, speak for them. So after I retired, I rode over to Ole Miss with my friend Beth Saul. She was teaching student teachers. She had a student teacher class, and I just rode over there with her to get her ID or something. And we were in the education department, and Susan McClellan was there and some other people. And I said, now, if y'all need somebody to teach special ed, something about special ed, let me know. And well, sure enough, they did. They needed somebody. So I took that class and taught seniors about severe profound, which was my love. And I remember saying to them, do you believe all children can learn? They're like, yeah. I said, do you really believe it? Because that's what your job is going to be, is convincing others that that's true. So that's what it takes. All children can learn. Just give them the opportunity.